Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. This is Moon Day, Moon Hour. So let's call on the goddess Selene, goddess of the moon, which is the goddess of courage. And now we have the decreasing moon, which is excellent for themes of completion, themes of to do with people, with mothering, with care, with housing, um, things to do, even with ancestry and astrology, with fertility, um, moon day, moon hour, things to do with food. Um, and so the moon right now is at the end of Gemini. It is squaring Neptune. However, we do have the sun releasing from the opposition to Uranus and applying to trine Neptune, and the sun in Scorpio. And so I was waking up, okay, yesterday as I was recording, kind of like a furious, actually rap song, and I wasn't even paying attention that that was that rap song. It was just what came emotionally for me. And there was this kind of energy to try to get in the way. It was like, hey, kind of like, why are you recording that? That's my culture, that's Black culture. And without skipping the beat, I began to reply, you can't get away with like your culture or this. I'm talking about rape culture. And if I grew up on your culture and on your music and in your language, then I speak in your language and I speak in your culture about a topic that matters to me. It's where the music comes in for me. And that was kind of like an interesting conversation that took place while I am recording. Okay. And so I think I mentioned that before when I was a young person. My mother did not like the electric guitars, and it was during the 90s, so I missed quite some good music because of that, and I only discovered it later. But the music that was okay was what we call black music, not R&B, not rap, black music. Okay, that was what I grew up on. And so when it became to like make music, this was one of the main influences that I would have to make music. Um, and so that became a topic where generation, like there was another generation. If I think about a Bulgarian friend that I had, that she wanted to be like Michael Jackson but in black. And even when it came to singing styles, when me and that friend were doing Mariah Carey, it was very difficult because Mariah Carey adjusted her singing technique to her vocal cord problem, and I have a nose that quite more fit like a black nose. Okay, it's narrow on top, then it gets wider. Okay, so the singing technique of, for example, Destiny's Child, and particularly Beyonce, that had the same problem. Okay, different nose shape was more fit. So when I began to sing from, let's say, Beyonce, it's not about the phrasing or anything, it's just the technique. The technique of my singing began to be more healthy. So my voice also sounded a little bit to that color palette as well. Um, and even when it comes to operatic voice, to go from that technique to operatic voice was way more healthy than to try to do, let's say, Emma Shaflan, which I did try to do. And I have no idea how they did not evacuate us from our house back then. So, okay, so that's kind of go back to my upbringing and the culture, and then it came back to tarot reading, okay? So there's a lot of tarot reading booming. And I remember I saw something about Eshu, which is actually an African god. It's kind of like a mercurial god that has this upright and downright. And that came up in a reading to do with law, in a white tarot reader. And she was talking about the trickery of a shoe that is in benefit versus the trickery of a shoe that is malefic. So that was very mercurial. And I particularly remember that that was a white woman reading Eshu. Okay? And that was very relevant for me. And then it was one of the black tarot reader that I'm listening to was kind of like, hey, if that's not in your culture, or you should wear horns or feathers and stuff like that. Now, I have Navajo asteroid next to my ascendant. So feathers is not something strange to my chart, and I can't have blood tests, so I don't know. Okay, and anyway, that's not about taking the rights of indigenous people. It's just about learning about my ancestry. Okay, it's not. And there are these two topics. Okay, there's the topic of, hey, what do, let's say, indigenous Americans in America you deal with today, versus what's your bloodline and learning about your roots, which should be. And there's another topic which I call it the Geert Wilders topic. And Geert Wilders is a Dutch politician. I think he has roots from Singapore as well. Yes. And he talks about, or Malaysia. And he talks about the fact that in Muslim cultures, there's still this habit of child marriages and infanticide and mistreating women, genital mutilation. So he speaks about it. Hey, I don't want that in my culture as Dutch, and so on. But we know that the cloning culture of Dutch people, which you can't talk about, it does that too. So the thing is that when we talk about another culture, or we give reading to another, first of all, your clients, when it comes to readings, they are going to be from other cultures. Very simply put, if I put a gun to your head and I say, darling, you need to get a tarot reading right now, do you go to your tribe, to your community, to the people that know you, or do you seek another place where it's more neutral, that nobody has interest for or against you, and you say, I'm gonna go get that reading there? We know what's the answer, right? So if you're a black tarot reader, most of your clients very likely are going to be white. They might not get to your office, but when you go on YouTube, they're the ones that are going to listen to you, and when they can afford to pay, they're the ones that are going to cash in as well. Okay. And same, okay, when I was doing astrology and I was offering a couple of free readings to just get across, I would get people from like India, okay, and we had to adapt the cultures, because the remedies in India is completely different, and in United States is more about the action that you take, and I learned from United States, okay, I learned also from Indians. But then we would have to adapt the remedy culture, because there would be what I know, what they know, and adapt the question types as well. And that adaptation is across culture, because to get a good astrology reading, they would try someone from outside the community that's not biased about them, which is very important. I know one person that was a Swiss publicity office, just very, very talented, both as an artist and as a publicity office. Yes, I noticed her doing tricks and maneuver whenever someone was an artist, and I disliked that, and I told her. But for another level, she wouldn't do that dumb fuckery. She was very talented. But she went to healers and people that she promoted, okay? And that was a grand mistake, because she was terribly betrayed. Her husband very likely was from some cult, so he was doing all this gaslighting, this weird things, and when she had to divorce, it was very difficult. And her business went down, and she was working with clients like Mark Zuckerberg, okay? So you understand why her business, because she wasn't doing cult, she wasn't doing Scientology, then now she was in a problem. So for her, it became very challenging, because she understood it. Whenever she would go to, she said, even if she would go to an astrologer, they wouldn't want her to rise above them, so they would give her that reading. And unfortunately, I noticed that with aromatherapist that I had, that I learned aromatherapy from, and she wanted me as her TA, suddenly, like, trying to limit my growth was like, it's not in your benefit. And for me, I was totally naive, because when me and my mom were going, were in Greece, and she wanted me to see Christmas in Europe, but then it was too cold, so we came back, and we wanted to ferry to Israel. Okay, why a ferry? Because we want to go on a non-open space. Everybody's in Israel is post-traumatic. And so we wanted to ferry to Israel, and there were two shipping companies in Greece at the port. So we went to one shipping company. So it's like, okay, we don't have, because it's winter and it's very dangerous, but they immediately called for the next shipping company. It was downright, get down the other building, and we're like, maybe you have. It was supposedly the competing firm, but they needed to help a client, so they gathered together to how to help a client. And my mom was like, oh my God, like, that's your competing company. It was like, it doesn't matter. There's enough for both of us. And that's the type of business making that I knew, that I learned. Also, when I went to a course of import export, okay? I have problems with small numbers, so I wouldn't be able to do that. So Neptune and numbers, okay? Neptune is big liquid assets. It's not about small numbers. Okay? It's the mistake with the small numbers. It's kind of like, what's a million? Okay, so there's another million. Okay, what you think about the ocean? It doesn't carry. It doesn't count the waves. So when it came to import export, so the teacher in import export was telling us, small client, small company, big client, big company. Okay, if you do, let's say, shipping, you don't want your product to get mixed in. Nobody will be accustomed to give you service, even for what I said with Neptune. Okay, the ocean doesn't count the waves. Okay, so if I was like a shipping company, I would need a place where if I make a mistake with 1,000 packages, nobody's going to discredit me as a shipping company. But I would be able to compensate. Okay, if I said like, oh, I can't give you that. Well, I can give you, let's say $1,000 for your package, and maybe your package was $1. Because I was like, it would be fair and ethical, but you would be able to do it. I would have enough leverage because I think in big numbers. And it doesn't mean that, let's say, Virgoian, Mercurial people don't get to big numbers when they think in small numbers. Is absolutely wrong. Okay, the 1 cent that you have as marginal profit with the Neptune-like wave of products can give you marginal profit of Neptune-like wages, and just two ways to get to the same place, and both are valid. But all things come to it. The other thing we learned is like, why is shopping malls so successful? Because if you have one clothing company, you're gonna buy clothes when you need to buy clothes. If you have two of them, that's interesting. You have an entire mall full of them, then you're gonna enjoy. It's gonna become like, hey, we're going to the mall to shop for clothes, and all of the shops in the mall are going to enjoy that. Okay. Now, what happens when you have a maverick? And my mother was a maverick. She was working in publicity as well, and then she opened a clothing line. The person that became an international business thanks to her publicity, okay, it was just a local newspaper, but she knew how to make things look great. And that person was put in a blockade on her clothing line business, but she was just one shop because he knew what he was dealing with. Now, if you know anything about publicity people, they do better for others than for themselves. Okay, so his entire fear was dumbfounded. And then her main clients, she had a few main clients, and then there was the terror attacks. So one withdrew, and one exploded on a bus, and that's it. And she had to close the shop. So that was kind of like the business story. And then when she had to close the business, there was a lot of problem with the taxes. So she told me, never open your own business. And for many years, I didn't. And then I was like, okay, well, the only way for me to make a living is if I own my own business, because I don't get along with firms. I make revolution there. It's not bad for them, but it's like, if you hire me, I'm going to make a revolution in your office. There's nothing I can do about that. Okay? Look at me. I listen to 1 or 2 tarot readings, then I do a rap, then I get something else. And I gotta say, your clients, if you're a tarot reader, let's say you're black, okay? Your clients, very likely white. If you live in a certain city, your clients very likely from another city. So this is why we need to keep traveling on. We need to keep transportation on. Even something as simple as, I was running into like, Peter after the assassination, so attended to political assassination prevention. And then look at what the family does, what the people that were left are doing. Does anybody continue with it? Like anybody doing that? And I learned about kind of like law in Netherlands, and then it's like when you write a book, when you do something that's part of your culture, who are going to be the readers? They're going to be solitary. Like who reads a book? Solitary women on the beach, right? And I'm not talking about the self-help book, which how is this book categorized, but also about just like you want to read a book that's just like a book. Okay, let's say a story of a son and his father, emotional story. When will you read that? You will go. You want to have a vacay to allocate time. Okay, you want to allocate time. You want to have a vacay. You want to be on the beach, someplace where you could go outside and you can just sit there, watch the waves, and read a fascinating story. Okay, how many solitary women can do that in today's economy? Who are the people that read books? And he even said himself that he and his sister were. That's Royce de Vries speaking in Dutch. You can watch his Instagram. But the saying, he and his sister were getting a load of books when their parents were going to Ibiza. Okay, so the parents were going on vacation, and he and his sister were getting this shitload of books. And what was to do? Okay, you had either hit each other or read a book, right? So you began to read a book. That was your culture. And that was basically how we grew up to write books as well, because that's how. And then you're like, oh, nobody reads books anymore. Well, when your parents went to Ibiza and left you in that way, they could go to Ibiza and leave you in that way. How many parents right now can go to Ibiza and leave their children with a pack of books? We need more such parents, and we need more such children. And how many people will read, this deep emotional book of a father and son? So like that's girl stuff, right? So so you gotta have, and you know what happens to a woman on the beach? Okay, my mother wanted to go on the beach. She would buy a pack of bamba, which is an Israeli snack that cost a couple of shekels, so to save on food and to have some money for the gas to drive to the beach. And then she would sit on the beach and watch the waves. Then people would begin to bug her. Okay? And it's not because they are refugees or because it is, no. Just like people send people to bug people so there wouldn't be solitary people on the beach, because the real estate, they want to develop like a hotel or something. Okay? And then what happens to the solitary person? Who did pay to do that? They pay a refugee, they pay this, they pay that. So people begin to have racism. Okay? If that's what happens in Amsterdam, very likely. Okay? And it's all about real estate. But who's going to read your book? It's those solitary women on the beach that need to be able to concentrate, so they can't be energetically assaulted. They can't be MK Ultra targeted. Look how much it took to say MK Ultra targeted. Okay, they can't be. And why should you not make good money from selling the book, right? You should be able to make a good money from that. And those are the people. It's like, hey, let's take a book to read. Let's go to the beach, sit there for hours, read a book, have a coffee, okay, or have a beer or whatnot. And we have to have this vacant culture where people do go and read books, go and watch movies. That's independent of MK Ultra. For otherwise, you won't be able to write a thing, and then you'd get mad, which is somebody talks about Peter's like, hey, that thing comes up, that thing comes up, that thing comes up, because they're not MK Ultra, so they can say that. Okay, so you're dying to say that. And don't tell me read the book if I can't go to Netherlands and have a vacay, because I mentioned handsome man. Okay. Because this is where I was supposed to be. I was supposed to go to Netherlands, go to the outer area with the signature, go to watch a movie, go that's my ancestry, that's my culture, that's the country where my father grew up, where his entire family is still there. I was supposed to be enjoying my time, okay, at the hotel without worrying about cameras, without anybody trying to recruit me for sex trafficking, that is espionage, and go read a book, right? That what was supposed to have been, not sitting there on the welfare, can't really get on a plane, worrying about how will I renew my Dutch passport that costs like a kidney now, or the border control. But he only made the border control because Geert Wilders spoke about what? Infanticide, genitalia mutilation, and all the things that he had to do in satanic ritual abuse, very likely, that he wants to abolish that. So he got in jail, right? He's operating from literal jail. That's the border control. Say if I want to read Wilders' book, okay? And it's interesting if you talk so, because what he says about Islam, you just remove the word Islam and write Masons, you got it. And that's in Africa too. And in China as well. Okay? So of course I want to read the book. Okay, I gotta go through the border control. Aren't we supposed to make money from our writings? And if I see a tarot reader and every once and then you sing a little song and I'm like, that woman should be getting money for this music. That woman should be getting paid for this music. And then suddenly I would see a person doing something completely off character. And they say, I wouldn't be me if I wouldn't be doing that. Goddamn, I've been watching your videos. I know this is MK Ultra. Okay? But I'm not going to stop consuming your content because the problem is not you, the problem is the MK. You should be getting money for your music, for your tarot, for whatever you do. And you would be getting that money from who? From white people, right? Because they're not in the same problem. And when we come to get a tarot reading, of course you're going to lean on your ancestry. And what you say about ancestry is also true. Because just like we all know, those ancestries are very mixed. Even when we talk about slavery tradition, where is all the mercurial gods, if not Eshu? So who came first, Eshu or Hermes? Well, if we all come from Africa, it's very likely Eshu, right? And then Hermes was the slaves that learned from their masters. And that's our Western culture. So yes, right, it's all African, but it very likely came from slavery as well. Or I get, certain black people saying, hey, white people did not invent slavery, but they abolished it. They did not abolish it, they allocated it to China, which we are now we all have in karma from that, because what's the Falun Gong? It's Masons, right? And then we have the BRICS. So China was the hold of the means of production. So our capitalism as Western culture, I reside in Israel, but it's pretty much like it switched hands from Stalin to United States along the 50s, I think. And our so-called Western culture is based on the means of production that is Chinese and communist. So it's like if they weren't communists, we wouldn't have capitalism. And I love the Chinese channels on YouTube because they're like Chinese teachers. First of all, I didn't know that Chinese is more simple than English when the word means, like you say what the word mean, okay? I need to learn Chinese. But the thing is that they come and they're like, oh, I come to United States for a holiday and I want to have, those little things that you buy and like everything is made in China. Go to celebrate Christmas, everything is made in China. So all in all, I think when it comes to peoples and people, we need the ability to move around, and we also need the awareness of, hey, what do those people go through? What do those people go through? What are the problems of these people? When not long ago, when I talked about my business, I was thinking, okay, how am I going to make good marginal profit? So I was thinking, how do I solve the problems of the rich people so that I can use the money to solve the problem of the poor people? Okay. And lo and behold, I found out about the masonry. And that pertains to both the rich people and the poor people. Because all with the masonry, they curse their family curses. They have to put curses on themselves. Kind of like to tend to solving that problem, and basically making cultural change in the masonry would inevitably solve also poor people's problems. Because you see, in terms of holistic health, if I live in Israel and I tend to my toenail fungi, and the first two fingers around like communication and channeling and relation, I tend to that, then they remove Gaza. They literally remove Gaza. So very likely there were things going on there that like Sodom and Gomorrah. And in Gaza, the soil had fungi that is toxic to people. So basically, if people would continue to live in Gaza, they would be poisoned to death. Now, how do these cultures treat both the people that did not have money to run away, which is the Bedouins we know today? They bomb them and they mistreat them because they have a blue ID. They did not have money to run. This is why they stayed. Okay? And the first thing, if a person is crazy, then a person is crazy because of sexual assault, they would tie these people up in like basements and stuff. It's the old teaching, how we treat the marginalized, how we treat the 12th house, okay, the sick, the poor, the homeless, the this, the that. This is how the entire society is getting treated upon war. And that invites invasion because it becomes, if you sacrifice one person, it's like the Sedna story. The entire village will have to appease Sedna for food because we need to tend to those marginalized in our societies. They bring in something, they bring in the actual enlightenment. I know because the fact that I spent time like in hospitals or seeing people that, were escaping jail or in those situations, I was exposed to things that most of society is not exposed to. And we need that bridge, we need that communication. I have the ruler of the 12th in the 9th and the outer planet associated with that in the 10th. So I bring in that connection that can avoid a Holocaust if people listen, okay? And then I tend to, like another finger that began to have it, and I have the just do it finger. It's the element of fire. It's the just do it finger. I hit just do it. And then I tend to Nike. And I see Nike all over the place. And I'm like, well, the shoes, Nike shoes, like they're very beautiful and had a lot of cool technology. And they tended to, like the slavery and stuff, to partially, they're going to have to do it way deeper to sustain. And then they were replacing the head of Nike with a person that wasn't doing good for the company, but is definitely doing good for the WEF. And everybody has to put Nike on, Nike symbolism on. And I'm like, there's something very strange because the shoes that we actually need are the ones that allow the toes to spread evenly, and that is the blessings of the peasants basically, because they were the one working the soil. They had to be on their feet for a long, lengthy time. Then if I might do it by feet series, I talk about the fact that when I begin to tend to that, I see how. And yesterday was a big eureka moment for me because. We had in the family claustrophobic and then agoraphobic, and that's trauma reaction. And for me, I had problem with my feet, so I wasn't claustrophobic. I could get into certain structures or get into I could blend in with society to a certain degree. But in school, when they were doing this misda, which is basically kind of like North Korea, okay, you have to stand for an hour for no particular reason. And everybody has to stand aligned. And this is Israel of like, I was born in 1984. So this is the 90s Israel. Okay, and you have to stand aligned. And I couldn't do that. I had to sit because the structure of the bones in my feet was not allowing of that. And so basically my feet were not compatible with the structure of North Korea, which is essentially that old communist structure that everything must be aligned. So my structure was not compatible with that. And I did not go to the army for similar reasons. Okay, I would just use the gun to shoot myself. So I was not compatible with my culture, very, very simply put, okay? And then I was looking at claustrophobia and agoraphobia. So claustrophobia, you cannot be in a closed space. All the people after the war, they need a house that is with a yard and everything, okay? They can't go into these jail-like structures because they won't be there. This is why we have a lot of homeless people in America. And a lot of them are veterans because they were coming from the war. You cannot be in a closed place, okay? And they're also agoraphobic because they cannot be in this misdar type of thingy. And for me, the problem was no one believed me. No one believed me. And they don't cover for the treatment of the feet and the teeth because that would expose something. Because if my feet is aligned like a peasant, I would stay away from the crowd and I would not be in a close place for a lot of time. And also I would build in the half moons, which is like, hey, that's making my job easier. But it's also like, it's not about making my job easier. It's about the fact that if I genuinely don't have power to water the crops, then there's a crop democide, okay? Like the crops will die, so I care about them. When I do the half moon, maybe I won't get to enjoy the fruits of the trees, but I do something that enables the nature that I live in to sustain. And it doesn't matter how much they will go around, your nervous system, they are going to be beaten off because they're going to get the cancer. If they sexually harass me for my breasts or try to get into my nervous system, they're going to get the cancer. You know what it's like the man having breast cancer? They're going to get the funny cancer. It's like, where'd you get that breast cancer from? I don't know, milk products. Okay, but it's okay if they learn the caretaking. For example, don't touch women's breasts when you're not supposed to. Okay, that could get the cells growing in your body better, and then they can get caregiving. Because if you're an old man, okay, and your caregiver gets sexually harassed by you, then she's gonna have to leave. Another one, then you're gonna get a gay man that's also kind of like compatible with you. Okay. Yes, please. I'm recording. Thank you. No. I'm recording. Okay. So that's the drama. So yeah, my mama, she cleared a great karma from the family because she took care of my grandmama. And then we literally did not have our own real estate, so we had to move in with the grandmama. But what happened is that when somebody was trying to harm my grandmama, he was also trying to harm me, okay, we kicked him out. So we moved with her to live with her. We had a problem with the real estate, but we moved to live with her. So my mama took care of my grandmama. So, and then when somebody came in, there was somebody around watching, so the grandma wasn't alone. Just as we speak, okay? But if you were the kind of man that sexually harasses women, who will take care of you, right? And what would be the quality of that care? And you're gonna get the funny cancer. You're gonna get what's a man doing with breast cancer? And that, even that is reversible because there's essential oils, there is caregiving, there's learning not to sexually harass people, there is donating, if you have wealth, donating of your wealth, your housing to women so that they won't be sexually harassed, so that they won't be recruited to the sex trafficking, sex espionage. Those things can facilitate the curation for cancer, and they're standing to the actual cure for cancer, which is not torture and chemotherapy, because not right now you're going to get the funny chemotherapy for your breast cancer as a man because you touch women boobs. For like, let's touch women boobs, let's try to get into their nervous system, and okay, and then what? Then you got to get a breast cancer, and you got to be hospitalized. The very hospitals that you were designing for the people, with the people, the moon, and this is karma of the moon. This is holistic medicine. Now, to try to act against holistic medicine or to try to limit holistic medicine, there's actual holistic medicine, not the medicine where you blame people for their ailments. Okay? There's blaming people for their ailments. Because, let's say if you got cancer, I'm not like, oh, you must have touched somebody's boobs. No, I'm like, maybe you were in a poor situation, you ate the wrong food, that's the first thing that I think about, okay? Then I see, you get a care given, then the nurse complains that, like, you touch her boobs. I'm like, okay, what does a breast cancer patient do in touching women's boobs? Like, don't you know that is limiting your growth and increasing the growth of the tumors inside your body? Okay, so that's how I'll treat it. I wouldn't blame you for being ill. I would blame society, okay, and large, and like, oh, how can we facilitate your healing? There's some changes that need to be made. But if you've been touching women's boobs, and I'm like, hey, how about we stop that and correct that? So if you have wealth, so instead of you paying for your own torture, which is chemotherapy, you could get a cheaper, way more accessible and way more benefic treatment for your cancer. Now allocate that wealth to, let's say, the women you harassed, or women that go out of sexual violence, or women in general that need to be housed alone so that they won't be harassed, they won't have cameras in their house or something like that. Mirosheli Pele, Itamar Yaron, Idonevo. But also Elon Musk, okay? Because Elon Musk had a boob problem. Like, that would be something that's very good for Elon Musk to do. Now that he's in the government, so that's something that's can actually be applicable. And believe it or not, everybody's talking about taxing the wealth. Nothing wrong with taxing the wealth. But the thing is, you're not scaring Elon Musk with taxation. And I said it a couple of times, okay, that guy would sit under the stars, watch the mountains, and see them as boobs. And he could spend hours doing that. Okay, that's not, you're not scaring him with taking his wealth away. So what is your blockade to taxing the rich? Well, the fact that, let's look about Section 8, it's also a housing issue. Okay? Section 8, the problem is not the tenants. The problem that should have been allocated to housing first, independent of ability to work for unlimited time. I think, oh, surely it would grow lazy people. No. Think about all these people that actually live alone. What do? They are like the Leonardo da Vinci's. Watch YouTube for people that reside alone. You get the Leonardo da Vinci's. They do all kinds of innovation. They are maintaining the heritage of innovation in our society. Okay? They are doing, like, what do I do? You think about these 2.5 years that I've been living in this Ekveld in Israel. What have I been doing? Well, I've been growing things, and then I've been doing the half moons there. And I've been dealing with torture. So I've been exposing MK Ultra and the sex espionage and how it's all related, and tending to political assassination prevention, tending to expandable, like literally the job that nobody does. And I was doing that on welfare budget, which is 4,200 shekels. That amounts to kind of like a little bit less than 800 euros or $800 a month. Okay, nobody, you wouldn't get anybody to tend to political assassination prevention for 800 euros a month. And my solutions actually work, but we have to tend to expendable children. You wouldn't get nobody climbing up to Ruta vlog saying, hey, you've been sleeping on these expandable children and that A-bomb, and they're going to expand you. Nobody would go and get there and say that, okay? And get the reiteration of UN decision around women. Okay, reminding people, hey, NATO is not going to vouch for you. NATO is everything right now. It's not going to vouch for your war crimes against women. Okay, nobody's going to do it on the 800 euros a month. No one. Okay, nobody going to risk their life, be targeted, deal with, okay, and spend money for the talismans to protect them, to tend to MK Ultra on 800 euros a month. Nobody's going to do that. Nobody of the people is going to do that. Nobody's going to take Rothschild's money, that's the welfare, okay, and put it in to tend into satanic ritual abuse in their own village that they live in for 100 euros a month. Nobody's going to do that. Hey, and if I would be paid more, that means, what would that mean? That I would allocate more money to that solution. But more than that, what would that mean? Okay? That now the person that didn't create the problem is solving the problem and raising an economy based on wealth, not on curses. Like me, there are millions. You just have to keep us alive. You just have to let us go. They postponed, okay, talking about Sedna reverence. Yeah, and the people using technology, yes, as you ask, okay, if you don't do it with your own hands, if you use technology to sexually harass people, what would happen? Well, you're going to need technology for your health. If you designed good technology for people's health, then you made half the steps. So people, let's say if you sexually harass me and I go to recover and I have all the recovery in the world and that stops. So I say you made a mistake, but I got good conditions and I recovered and this. I'm not going to keep grudge for the next. People can make mistakes, right? But if everywhere I go I meet that, then you are designing one giant karma for yourself. Okay? If I talk about the right medicine, you reiterate the wrong medicine, you're gonna need that medicine. If I talk about transhumanism, and I say AI is wonderful, AI is great, okay? But we need to find a way to work with it as people. We need to find a way to work with AI. Okay? So we can actually benefit as society and not put AI to slavery either. And Field Swan is great when she was talking about technology. She says, we're going to have to be nice to technology, so give some rest to our technology as well. We all have something to learn about this. So yeah. Okay, that doesn't mean that if you come to me, let's say, with I don't know, problems in your bones, and say, oh, that is a person that blames everybody else, and that's why they have halux vagus. That's what the holistic book said. Okay? And I'm like, something doesn't click here, because that's blaming the person on something who's not really feeling able to do. Well, that means you may have been in a certain situation where your bone structure cannot hold for standing in these organizations that put people to slavery. And so if you can't work on your feet, you maybe have a karma that you came to abolish slavery. So you need to correct for that and see what comes up. To me, things about A-bomb came up when I began to work on my feet alignment and denucleafication. Feet ground. Okay? It's very simply put. And when I talked about the shoes, so the peasants had good shoes because they were working outside, but the people, the rich people, they were marking their wealth with shoes that are triangular pointed, just like the Masons, right? Triangular, pyramidal, Rosicrucian, whatever came before that. That is bad lineage. This also means that I have those in my lineage, in my bone structure. And I need to correct for that karma, to change for the Mason. So aligning my toes corrects for the karma, bringing me the steps to correct for the karma. And immediately what came? Nikes. the shoe. So whether it's for Nikes to change for the shoes, and the barefoot shoes, they're good when you walk on the soil. So you gotta be walking on the soil and building up that soil. Okay, it takes pride. I just tend to my feet. So that's very simply put. If I have the triangular shape of the feet, means somewhere along the lineage, and I need to correct for the shape because this is not compatible shape. Because actually, by grounding ourselves, that we get a good crown, so we don't need to make our shape of the feet triangular. That breeds colts, which I've been dealing with my entire life. Sometimes just lining that structure. That's holistic medicine for you. It gets even more funny, but I will talk about that in another episode. So that was some moon reverence and curating the moon cults, and understand if you're a tarot reader and you're white, you're gonna have some audience that's not from your heritage. If you're Black person, you're gonna have some audience and some money for not for your heritage. And reiterate what Jaguar Wright said. She said, people from the Black community, they didn't want to believe me. But people from the white community, they were the ones that believed me when I talked about what's going on in Black music industry. And hey, why am I a white, half Dutch, half Israeli woman, gender weird as well at times? And I have to admit, I don't know if my gender thing is like upbringing because I had to be my own man, or it's like genuine, like I'll curate for my moon and sun and I'll see who I am, right? And I can say, why would I listen to Jack White? First of all, she wasn't on the algorithm until this year. She wasn't on my, like, she wasn't showing up in my feed. But why would I listen to Jaguar Wright? Because other person is like, hey, there's something going on with the music industry. Diddy's like, you listen to 1-2 episodes. I'm like, okay, fuck it. Because I know all these people. I know not just who Beyonce and Jay-Z is, okay, because I know, I was growing up on the music of, I was singing Aaliyah. I was singing Left Eye. If I can recall raps that I was rapping for 15 years old and suddenly like, oh my God, I remember the lyrics. Because I grew up on that. Okay, I know who is Faith Evans. I know who is Biggie. I remember like even in my generation they were talking about Pac and I didn't know who is Pac. Okay? That's the culture, the musical culture. I grew up as a 90s girl that had a mother that dislikes electric guitars. When I was purchasing the music, those are the CDs that I got. Okay, so it was some Destiny's Child and it was some Mariah Carey. But later it became that's the music. I know who is Usher. I know who J-Lo, everybody knows, but it's like because I was listening to that. I know the rap of Jay-Z before he married Beyonce. I know Snoop Dogg. That's the music that I've been growing up on. So I have the good things that I have good appreciation of my body, and I didn't grow up into the heroin chic. Which was good because in Black music it was all about your booty and it was liked. Okay. On the other hand, there were the other issues because it was difficult to connect to like intimacy because that was never shown or supported. And the most example that we would get is like Beyonce and Jay-Z, where it's like this really toxic relation. Okay. And and that's the music we grew up on. So, of course, the people who are listening to Jaguar Wright and believe in her mostly is white people that grew up on Black music. And we're the ones who already want to looking for the funds, like where would I, with my 800 euros that I have to still spend on an apartment where they try to do human trafficking. And there are 3 families living there, okay? So it's a village. It's just kind of like, it's kind of like not a big mansion, but it's kind of like a tiny mansion. And there are 3 families there, 1 Palestinian, 2 like mixed, Israeli, Russian, Ukrainian, I don't know, and Moroccan. And then my unit, which was continuously changing residents. So because I'm making a lot of changes and revolutions, and I was compatible, but I have to deal with what's going on there in the real estate in general. For the sickest, it's the biggest territorial city in Israel that's not yet built. It's very compatible with my chart. So you still have to like, how do I even move for these things so that these people won't have to do human trade so that they can do music? Who are the people that care? It's the people that grew up on this music. Like I care to see Jaguar write live in her own performance. I care to see if I see a tarot reader, then she's singing all the time. Like, yeah, I would care to come to her show and listen to her songs. Okay, so sometimes that wealth is not going to come from within your community. And I'm going to give another example about astrology. The reason I was able, when I was still making some money from astrology, the reason I was able to do that is because, yes, the community of astrologers, you can make money from that because people need to give each other readings and people are aware of importance of astrology. But it's just changing money within the community, which is not bad. But it's also not always so yielding. With the money I made is that I had another community of a field of interest. I was into sex positive, sex ed, sex education. I was, and that continued to relational stuff, and that continued to crystals and rocks, and I could use all kinds of things and all kinds of communities that people knew me from that community. And then they were like, I literally had people when I began to open myself for like discussions and getting paid for that, people really wanted to talk with only me because they remembered me when I was contributing to that community. Okay, so I was contributing to several communities and people remembered me along the years because I was the first group that tended to red flags for narcissistic abuse. Okay, what now is red flags for MK Ultra. Okay, very simply put. Okay, but there was no Facebook searchable group on these things. I was the first. Again, bringing the knowledge in from the Hebrew. That saved a lot of lives. It's not that I saved lives, it's the changing, the people were exposed to that information. People were telling me, like, you saved me from being suicidal. And I'm like, I didn't save you. I was like, that's information. But I was very happy that you got this information. And then people began to translate things from English into Hebrew. And then you get MK Ultra controlling that, which is a bummers. But I'm tending to MK Ultra now, okay? So people knew me. It was like, hey, that's the person who gave us tips to deal with sexual assault. And I even had a woman who was like, you're like spiritual guru. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Well, apparently she thought that because before she applied things that I told her, and even though she was going through the other courses and stuff like that, welfare was working against her. Then welfare started working for her. And then she tells me, okay, like, don't rely on the welfare. I'm like, darling, I don't know what to do. Okay, we need to have another solution, but I don't have the inner leverage to even do that. Okay, then she was talking about my Dutch passport, like you went to Netherlands because It's like whatever reason I was going to Netherlands, I didn't come back the same person that I went because I went and I was visiting my roots. And I understood why my father grew the way he grew, why things happened the way things happened. Because I understood what's within the cultures. Like that was very fated journey. So now you're gonna talk about why you went to there, why you didn't know. I also understood that to be well housed in Netherlands, I need to change things in Netherlands. Same as in Israel. Okay. Whereas if she wouldn't talk like that, like darling, I could make like civil marriage with you and you would get the Dutch passport. You would need to learn the language. You would get the Dutch passport. We could divorce. That's it. You would have the passport. But there is gay marriage, right? If the passport was what you wanted. Okay. Why was I looking into the content of Peter continuously? Because I saw the way he died is the way women die when they escape violence. And I'm like, hey, there's something there. And there were 7.7 million people watching. I was like, hey, let's talk about before the murder. Because what happens? What in our culture leads to that? What in our rules, obeying the rules leads to that? What in the structure leads to that? Okay? What is a good basis for us to change? Well, that's the lodges. Okay, and then I'm telling that. Okay, you would get no people on 800 euros turning to their own ancestry. My ancestry, my Dutch ancestry, a person who worked with the church, okay, and then was fired. And that brother doesn't speak to that brother because my father's not so much in communication. But I turn to my ancestry and say, we as Dutch, we need to tend to satanic ritual abuse in our cultures. Because it doesn't matter. And he was posing the Statue of Liberty with kind of like face palm when Trump was elected. I was like, don't what's going on out there? We need to tend to our lodges. What's happening within our lodges? That satanic abuse, we own it to ourselves as Dutch because that affects us more than what's happening out there in the United States. You wouldn't get somebody doing that for 800 euros a month. Okay, so and when it came to astrology, so it was the people that knew me from other places who were like, I want to get a reading with you. Okay, I need, or even without astrology, it's like, I want to, can we have a conversation? Okay, and they were willing to pay for that conversation. Okay, it wasn't a ton of money, but when I was beginning to make money, that was, okay, the situation. Then they excluded me from groups one after another, as if I'm going to take your income. I'm not going to take your income, because when I speak with you, and I got something from Efrat, and something from this, and something from that, I'm going to say, hey, here's that course, this is the course you can make, here's the adaptations I can make for this course, okay? Because that doesn't cover, if you've been in life risk situation, that won't always cover everything, and you're gonna need like the guidance. So here's what I can give you. Here you can buy that course from that person. But they were doing a blockade, fearing that I'm going to be like disowning them or discrediting them or taking them out of business. So I'm like, no, when I'm growing, all of us are growing. The same with astrology. Okay, when I'm growing, all of us are growing. That's the meaning of growth. I'm not going to be able to handle all these clients on my own. Same with aromatherapy. Okay. Because if I'm doing like aromatherapy and I'm excited to study something new, then okay, I'm going to say, hey, here's what I would get you. Here's the person that taught me aromatherapy. If she still receives people, or if you want to learn that, go study there. But if I know that she's doing like what she did to me, then I won't send people to her. In that, unless she changes that, and I see that she changes that, okay? And that's just our business culture. And whereas the MK Ultra forcing you to do stuff so that person wouldn't grow, so that person would go. You don't want to be remembered as the tarot reader that told the person to put horns on of Satan, okay, if they want to grow a business of schooling children or something that they're meant to do in their lineage, okay? You don't want to be that person. When your information is valid, okay, you don't want to be that person. That's your business. That's harming your business, not the other person coming from another culture or implementing your tips. So it's like they're not working against you. Okay? But if you're set up to society to say, oh, now we're going to enslave white people like to die. What do you know about white? Let me tell you about white people. Mark Rutte and Geert Wilders. Okay? They were growing in kind of a Disneyland camp of satanic ritual abuse where they were tortured, and they had to torture in order to survive this. And some things were going underground, and that forever will be used against them in political agenda to try to pit one against the other. And you have to sit in case somebody tells that you should be slaughtered. Okay? That's the T guy. Okay, you should be slaughtered. And you go back to the parliament the same day, you have to argue with them. And the lawyer office that you have to get to defend you has a inverted symbol of the justitie. Okay, inverted symbol of justitie, of the scales. It's the scales, but the scales are not balanced. And in the symbol, the scales are not balanced And that's the person you have to protect you from political assassination against someone that you have to speak. The person that literally voiced you have to be killed in every which way. And they're not better than you in any which way. You have to speak to them, but the next day, and have a 12-hour argument with them in the parliament the next day. Is this what you want for black people? Is this what you want for Congo? Is this what you want for Nigeria? Is this what you want for this place? You think I didn't see the MK Ultra going on these influencers? Of why didn't they talk about also Congo? You can post all the good things in Africa and say, hey, we need to tend to that. But look at Nelson Mandela. When Nelson Mandela was doing that, he was 20 years, his community let him be 28 years in jail. So you expect Wilders to open up about the cults in Netherlands? He's already 20 years in because he spoke about Islam. And he spoke about these things in Islam. The same things that you were told that only happened to this because of that. And I saw it because I live in Israel. You know how many times they try to scare me with Arabs? Really? The Arab scare was like, I know there's a white person sending you. I know there's an Ashkenazi Jew out there sending the Moroccan and the Arab and the this and the that so that I would hate you. But I also tell you this, if you keep that infanticide, if you keep that, then what you are compatible with the Khazarians that you hate. Because they do that to their own. Okay, we gotta hold these businesses. We gotta beat that MK Ultra. You know what I saw? Remember that episode I had about Rebecca? Yes, I was going to do my makeup, because really, when it comes to putting makeup on my own face, I was thinking like maybe I can simplify that because I know that makeup artists want to have their own art, which is reasonable, or maybe I can hire someone, which would necessitate me to be more orderly. So I was going to see, okay, who's the lady, how she puts on the makeup, taking a note, okay, for the like maybe to buy when I have, with my 800 euros welfare money that I also have to pay for the rent and for food and stuff, but trying to grow my business, right? And she was doing this weird shit that I talked about in this episode. And I'm like, okay, let's still try to publish her so she can get out of MK Ultra. Okay? Because the point is not to leave a person like she was probably very isolated, so she had to be in that place. We need the way to exit violence, right? And then I watch shorts on YouTube, and I see there's all kind of weird things with makeup. Somebody puts on a brush, kind of like shove it entirely into her mouth, and like and all that, you ate that, and I'm like, it's very obvious what they're doing there. To the makeup industry. Okay, and I'm not the person who even buys makeup, so I wouldn't notice that so much. And then I have a woman that, Emily Harper, that escaped a religious trauma. Okay, they try to make her do the two gender symbolism. And I'm like, no, she went out of a cult, and she exposed the cult. Now she has to make money for her own. And you see people being threatened, high-ranked people, celebrity people, influencers people. You mentioned MK Ultra, they block you. Okay? This I have to give reverence to Royce, because I mentioned MK Ultra and he didn't block me. Okay? Because, that's his father's son on that level. But, but what was it that brought no comment? I think Sam Edma again, but I don't remember. Okay? It's like push the boundaries. You got to push the boundaries in a good way, not push the boundaries to get people to enslave themselves, but push the boundaries for to get people out of that slavery. And you always and to to stay in your lane will only get you this far. To mingle with other cultures and other people in a way that is benefic, that is where the money comes from, because this is where the energy flows. Does a river ask which country it is when it flows from one point to the ocean? How do we think about Asian traditions? Okay, so one good tradition is where kind of like the guru or the person would talk about poison, and he says, here, if I have this drop of poison, I pour it in the ocean, will anybody get poisoned? No. Okay, but if I have a swamp, a tiny glass, and I put that poison and somebody drinks it, they will die. So when we have poisonous feelings, we need space, and we need to go into the ocean, and we need to swim. So that is being diluted, and so we mingle with the pure waters. And what happens is the pure waters, they dilute the poison, and we become purified. Now our water is pure, so the next time we go into the ocean, okay, even if you spit at it, it's still not poison. Okay? So you think about people and you think about energies. But for that, we have to all across the board tend to infanticide, tend to the things that culture doesn't matter. Okay, there's no culture that justifies genitalia mutilation. And I said that with Jewish ancestry. Okay? There's no culture that justifies infanticide and child trafficking. There's no culture that justifies rape. That red blood on the mat, on the sheets that the Orthodox Jews expect to see when a couple is marrying, this is rape. It's not how you have a first time. There are tantric ways to have first time. You need to have these teachings, because if you expect to see blood, it's not bloody. It's not bloody. Fertile sex is not bloody. Okay, so if it's from ignorance, then we can change that and evolve a society. But if it's a blood ritual, this needs to be abolished. Otherwise, there will be another Holocaust for the Jews. And I said it as third generation to Holocaust survivor. And I know that pyramid shape is coming because it has on the feet of my mother. Then I know it's coming from my grandfather. Okay? Or my grandmother, I don't know. But okay, it's coming from mother's side. It's not just... Then we need to curate this lineage, because of course it breeds the Holocaust. Because the inner Holocaust, where the children are touched, where the sex that you have to bring them is rape, then it's an inner Holocaust, and then this Holocaust, what's in as within, so outside, it comes outside. Then you meet it outside. You have to deal with what's within. But when you deal with what's within, you have Jewish ancestry, you see it's like, hey, well, the Inuits were doing that. Hey, indigenous society was doing that. Hey, those were doing that. Hey, Islamic people were doing that. Hey, all these people were doing that. All these people will have to tend to that. because you can't just say Khazarians when it's in your culture. And you cannot hide beneath your culture. Okay, it's not the person that's doing rap being white or looking as white. Okay, that's your cultural problem. It's what's within your culture. Because that another person sings rap is a cultural win. Okay, they are influenced by this culture, as long as you're making good money, and you should be. But what you have in your culture is something that you need to tend to. And then tending to that. I do it by feet. Another person has another way. Okay, for example, in India, the blessing from the guru is to kiss the feet of the person. Okay, and feet are very important. And you get, okay, to the crown. And in India, it's from India that I learned that relations between, let's say, teacher and student, sexual relations is forbidden because it's considered incest. It's true, because the guru is Jupiter, and the feet is Jupiter, Pisces. And Jupiter is the bringer of children, bringer of wisdom. So unless you're like both gurus and married, then that would be incestual relations. This is true. Okay? And I noticed that when what happened to me in academia, I felt like there's something that's big incestual, but it's very likely that some of my lineage came from incest cult, and so I had to tend to it within the lineage. This is why I went to therapy and not to the court, because I wanted to. And then my psychologist was deeply MK Ultra. But you know, you're gonna have to do that within your own lineage. And yes, it is by mingling with other lineage. For example, the fact that some African women put garlic underneath the pillow and bathe with garlic to cleanse from sexual assault, that can help other lineages to heal. Or use urine, because if my grandfather would eat their urine because they ran away in the Holocaust, then to use urine as protective and sacred is something that's curating for my lineage. So of course these things are coming about, where our various cultures can be curating for one another, but we're gonna have to deal collectively, in each to their own lineage, with what's been happening, okay, that brought us to these points of whether it's colonialism, slavery, bad relations between men and women. We'll find out that those things all have to do with what we call these the it's not, you cannot say Masonic cults, because that's way before that, and the culture of curses, okay, and on everybody, whichever this comes from. Okay, so I don't know your culture, but whichever this comes from, people placing curses, okay, and everybody's a part of them taking a part or being acknowledged in a tribe, because in a tribe you don't say I'm from this tribe, the tribe has to acknowledge you, so it's like a cult. And if it places a curse on you, that you wouldn't know, because that would be the chief or the, I don't know, even the shaman. Like, I don't know who would do that. But that is something that we need to deal collectively, because that breeds colonialism, that breeds the Gogu Magog, the war of everything in everything. And that is hindering at prosperity. Whereas where you work with will and consent, there's some natural ebb and flow of your sexual energy, that you mingle with the soil, and you understand what is going on, you learn about things. It is natural, it's happening naturally to people. And so, as you know, some people will want to be child free because they're going to want to work on technology or something like that, or and that is all natural and good. And that's, you know, a conversation that we need to have, because the cultural appropriation is very good when we raise awareness to plagiarism, but we can just talk about plagiarism. I think we can just talk about plagiarism, because it's black doing this to black. Okay, people been accusing Beyonce of plagiarism, and there are many cases where, like, if Beyonce plagiarized, nobody can deal with that. If somebody tries to even touch something of Beyonce, they get the Baywatch. It's like, no money changes hands. That's publicity for you, darling. Okay? When I say our beat drops the cold and the beat gets slow, okay, I use the songs that I grew up on and I do the adaptation. And I have an idea. Okay, does money change hands when I do that? No, no money changes hands. I'm not making profit off of my YouTube. And I do that the beat on Nederlands. Okay, because that's my culture and that's my culture. Okay, so I don't need a Baywatch all up in my non existent grill. No money lost. When Jaguar writes, when talks and we hear about the music of Jaguar, right, and we hear the entire music industry in her, and you're like, okay, she wrote that, then that's the original. Okay, it doesn't make the adaptation any less beautiful. It's just like, why wouldn't she be accredited? So who's doing cultural appropriation? That was plagiarism. It's not Eminem singing rap. It's the blood sacrifice within the black music industry. Okay, that's the thing. Okay, is me talking about Peter's program harming anybody's finances? No, is MK Ultra that doesn't allow your clients to sit on the beach and read the book, which is like, what do you like more? Okay, the stuff you had to do as a lawyer, the stuff you had to do to get a certification as a lawyer, the stuff you have to do on a daily basis, that every once in a while you get the fraction of what would be your idea implemented and have to compromise your literally entire soul, the roles you have to play with the big giant M behind you, or the book that you wrote about you and your father. Okay. Or the impact that you actually have on people. When I ran into Roy stuff, like sometimes I would get things from my childhood, memories from my childhood, because they come from Netherlands, okay? That's a very famous family in Netherlands. So I would get memories from my childhood. That's real. That's real. When Jag talks about, when I listen to Jag, I listen to the music that I grew up in, but the original form. Just like when I was listening to Liedermaching in 2007. Okay, listening to Liedermaching, I was like, oh, that's the culture of my culture. And I don't even know how, because I know my grandfather was from Sarny, which is next to Kiev, and the grandma was like Georgia. So it's like, who was the leader? Like, how is that even? I don't know. But my mom, she listened to Alan Jackson. She listened to country music. I grew up on Christian tunes. Okay, I was singing Christmas carols in black because that's what I knew. Okay, I was connected to that. Go figure. I have no idea. But essentially, the stay in your lane, I think, if you got a lane that you need to stay in, then you're gonna be staying in your lane. Like that's just gonna happen. But when we talk about the complexity of DNA and incarnations and whatnot, and the fact that business-wise, is sometimes not your own local community that supports you, and that they can only support you so far, but the mingling of cultures that supports both your nervous system, your endocrine system, your bloodline, and biodiversity, and that is important for not to exploit, okay, cultures, and that's just it, even if it's within your culture, okay, to give the credit, to give reverence, to remember. And I gave reverence even to people that were literally my enemy, targeting me, trying to assassinate me. It's like, hey, that idea I got from that person. You don't have also that's teaching I got from him. If you plagiarize it from someone, then that someone will rise up and speak. Okay. And this is breeding good culture. And I also have to say that the cults, I think they force people to plagiarize. I think it's one of the crimes that I have to commit. Um, that I'm not joking. So yeah, um, And then it's the thing that if we run into this MK Ultra thingy, it's also kind of like, hey, not to erase the person, but kind of like, hey, to face that. And to, and it's not about even accountability. It's kind of like, hey, that happened. This is why when it happened to my housing situation, I say maybe that was MK Ultra. I know people that were hearing comments from orders from Gaza. Okay? But if that was something that was planned even before I came to live there, then karma will ensue. And it's not up to me. Okay? It's not even up to me. But at the same time, the karma that ensues is not about taking people down, but about, okay, enabling actual wealth to be. And this is all across the board. Okay, that pertains to our food. Thinking about, I'm watching the Pacini's on YouTube, and it's an American woman married to an Italian man. And one of the April Fool bloopers was about the olive oil, some American brand of olive oil. And she was like, we're being sued for $30 million because you were cursing for that olive oil. Okay. Like, there's no olive oil in America. Not even at Whole Foods, very likely. So essentially, it's those things that you watch and enjoy, right? It's just those mixed couples you watch and enjoy. And you see how MK Ultra sometimes gets to even another couple, okay? And the issue is not to stop watching these couples, kind of like, hey, free them from MK Ultra, just like the issue with Britney Spears. We're not like, oh, she gone crazy, she's irrelevant. No, free Britney Spears. We still need to free Britney Spears. I just saw a short of Britney Spears dancing with the yellow shorts still. What about Britney Spears? Can we continue the conversation about Britney Spears? She's still being held hostage by MK Ultra. Okay. Are we gonna wait for us to see Royce in yellow, or to see our local heroes in yellow, or to see the tarot reader in yellow? Like, can we talk about this when it's small? So we tend to that when it's small. I saw yesterday a 6 months old video of a Palestinian cook, and he was cooking arais, which is one of the most delicious things you'll get to taste. I test only the Israeli version of that. He was cooking arais, and then he was calling on Rafah. For he said the people in Rafah, they need your help, and blah, 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 blah. And I get it 6 months after. And that was just not bringing up the satanic Muslim of Brotherhood flag, not bringing up the watermelons, because he had no watermelon. He was just cooking arais and saying, could you please help people in Rafah? Not watermelon, not the satanic ritual abuse flag, not Hamas, none of that, not bashing Israel, nothing. It's just like, here, there are people in Rafah, they need your help, cooking arais, traditional Palestinian food, and calling for help. Why did I see it 6 months after? Would I not put the money on a plate? Of course I would. And so would many other Israelis across the world. And other people that can put the money on it. But why do I see it 6 months after? Why? Because the algorithm was favoring all the watermelons. I'm sorry, well, watermelon is not the flag of Palestine, it's the flag of Hamas. Hamas is not Palestine. Some people even say Hamas is an Israeli intelligence thing. I don't know. I don't know, okay? So why is a Palestinian person calling for people help needed in Rafah? I don't know if there is Rafah right now, okay? Waiting 6 months in the algorithm. Can we tend to that? Because we should, because this time is Rafah, next time is Jerusalem, next time is Amsterdam. People are talking about vandalism in Amsterdam. Like, is the cure for vandalism democide? Like, really? Ajax red on red, and the red in Ajax and the red in Hapoel and the red in the Labour parties is Rosicrucian, is Rothschild. Some people grew up on Ajax. Some people had Ajax, saying Ajax, don't even know where it come from. Because my father was not like a footballer. He was fixing cars all day. He was not doing really. So I have no idea where it came from. When a young girl me, I thought I invented a language, and one of the words was Ajax, 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 Ajax. I don't know where I got that. I didn't. I don't know where I got that. Okay. But Ajax would need to tend to that, and that's your soccer team. Okay, that's the place that kind of like unites the family when you go to see a game. We just like for me it was more like the cult like sciences of Feynman because that's what I grew up on. But for other people it's the cult like soccer. What's happening in your soccer team? Because it's just like what's happening in your church, what's happening in your soccer team. You're gonna have to tend to that because otherwise it's just mingling of crime families, and even with crime families amongst themselves, they need, in Beersheba, it was a crime family city. There was actually a show called Zinzana, which was made on Beersheba city, and just the region where I live right now, actually, where I reside right now, because I took a step from that human trafficking hub with the pyramid shape. It is sent Orthodox. They sent an Orthodox Jew to quote something I wrote about child trafficking by a psychologist on Facebook. It's kind of like a call the child Paz, which also means gold. And that person asks me, okay, this really Orthodox person looking like Santa Claus but in black and white. Really? And he's asking me, do you know where is Paz Street in Beersheba? And I'm like, I have no idea. I was looking dead in the eye, joking about it. And I'm thinking like, really, where do you know that from? For the skit that I wrote about the psychologist that kidnaps a child, and then the mother comes and kidnaps his child, and she feeds him well, but he kidnapped the child because he's saying the mother is not qualified to be a parent, and his wife, the psychologist's wife, but he kidnapped her child. She's like, oh my God, we got a babysitter. Please keep it that way. But the woman needed her child back. And then she asked him all the fishes and all the things and all the food to bring to his child, basically, because she was doing the babysitting. Okay, and his child was called Paz. That's sitting there before the war. I wrote that. That's sitting there through the entire war. I did not change that post when you go to my Facebook page. So you get an Orthodox, but now Orthodox people, they're not supposed to have a cell phone, okay? You're not supposed to have Facebook, according to your pyramidal religion. So if you're not satanically abusing people with my psychologist doctorate on your own, doctor, I think, right now, by now, okay? If you're not doing these ceremonies together, so what do you know about Paz? I don't think there is a Paz Street in Beersheba, just to make it very clear, okay? There is no Paz Street in Beersheba. I'm on the money. Paz means gold. I'm on the money. I don't care what you're wearing, what your religion is. When I see what you do, that's what you do. You got to stop doing it for your own people. Because your people got to get persecuted. You try to persecute me, I'll probably get exiled somewhere and, sit on the beach and read, I don't know, Roy's book. But y'all gonna get persecuted. Y'all gonna end up in gas chambers. And then you're going to have a new country. Same with the Palestinians that go with the watermelons. Okay, if you go with the watermelons, that's what's happening. Because the Palestinian guy cooking a race, traditional Palestinian food, and saying, please help Rafah. No watermelons, no symbolism, no nada, just a genuine person calling for help. Who wouldn't allocate money for people that are starving? Or that need housing, or that need whatnot? They're the people, okay, they're not to blame. But those that went with the watermelon cult, they did it to their own. I'm still planning on that vacation. Because my if you would see for the place that I live, it looks like a paradise. It's paradise. It's 2 meters from Jordan, next to the Dead Sea. You pay 11 shekels, you're at the Dead Sea with the public transportation through the mountains. People coming from all over the world. So you get to feel like, even though you cannot travel, like you mingle with society. Best spot, because it was the Maklers, it was the real estate, that's the building he built. I don't think he knows that I know that. But the neighbor told me, because they were living there. It was a family, okay? Like, why would you do human trafficking mention from your own housing, man? Why would you cooperate with that? Okay? And I know why, because of weird extortion things, but hey, I gotta stand up to you and I gotta expose that so you would start singing about those who extorted you so we get the dumb fuckery out of here. And your family can grow and I can grow and my family can grow. It's not about what you're wearing. You could be the most orthodox Jewish about it. Like, do you sacrifice children? Do you not sacrifice children? Do you rape people? Do you not rape people? Even within the coast, there are people that don't rape and don't sacrifice children. Okay? So they know what's up. Ruth Shoam may have, if Ruth Shoam is successful in getting her children back from her guru, Hasidic, pedophile father that exposed Wagner Fund and all the things that were responsible for 7th October, okay, this woman might save the Jews from a Holocaust. Because ain't nobody got time. If I travel to Europe now, I look either Palestinian or Jew. Because that nose with that face, in the past they would think Italian. And I've traveled, okay? Somebody was traveled, okay, young girl, relatively tall, but in Europe I seem very local, and the guy tries to flirt with me, so I will buy from his counter. Okay, nothing malefic. It's like, where are you from? And I was like, yes. I was like, Great Britain, nah. Italy, nah. This, nah. That, nah. And I was like, going back from it, I was like, Israel. Ah, Israel. Okay? So, but if you go with that features now, it was actually my mother that suffered because she looks more like Ukrainian, and then these two German people. It was like, you come to take our works, our salaries. I don't know, we come to spill money on your land and have a road travel. Okay? Then she answered him good morning in Dutch, in German. That was German back then. And they were like, oh. But that's not all German people. Most German people are actually very kind and very nice. Back to the 1980s, I don't know right now. And if that's not enough, so we bought a car, and it had a weird plate on because we didn't have a residency. And everybody now, when you go to the villages, which is where the beauty is, okay? This is the city, of course, but you go to the villages, the beauty is, and this flow. And everybody's looking at that car, and everybody's curious. Okay, so the people like that, and they're looking at that car. Mom's like, oh, damn. Why are they looking at you? Because you went to a fucking village with a car that looks strange, and everybody want to know what it is. Okay. But where do you have the racism, the most racism? You don't have in Amsterdam or in Berlin. Even Amsterdam today, people are not stupid, okay? They're not stupid. They're not going to take their, to knock down Amsterdam, you have to do way more than that. Okay? You'd have to do way more. Everybody understand what went on. You're not going to take down Amsterdam. The same with Berlin or stuff like that. You don't have so much racism there. Why? Because people meet each other. It's like if I dislike something that you do and you say and you hide it beneath culture, and I'm like, hey, I dislike that. Don't hide beneath culture, okay? If you do genitalia mutilation, you say that's my culture. It's like, fuck that. No, that's not. Then get it out of your culture. Okay? You beat a woman. You say that's my culture. It's not your culture. You go in jail. It's not your culture. And if it is, we understand why you're a refugee here. So how about we change that and do some other things? Like you had great food for your culture. You had other things for your culture. Okay? That's city talk. We don't like, with the villages, we might think that that's actually your culture. It's like, get that culture away. When I was thinking get your rape culture off my lawn, I wasn't thinking about a particular culture. I was thinking about what people agree with rape. That's what we call rape culture, okay? But if you have a village that's pretty homogenous in terms of society, and then somebody come and they're from another culture and they rape, so like, what would they think? Okay, what would you think about this culture? Okay, now we know that there are infiltrators and they do it on purpose so people can't mingle and so on and so forth. It's not for, it's for a reason that it was the Moroccans that voted for Wilders more than anyone. I mean, all my love to Peter, but if you voted Peter, you would get a drug colony. Okay? Because how did Moroccans mingle with Dutch on a joint and something more? Okay? That's the thing. You would get a drug colony. It's true that it was like that before, but for the Moroccans, that's what would be. Okay? But you vote for Wilders, maybe he would take the dumb fuckery out. Okay, but it's still not working. You have to turn to way more things. So they vote for Wilders. Why do black people vote for Trump? Because they don't want to be knocked down and disabled and then being given welfare, not being able to make money. And Trump has supposedly, or maybe they presume that Trump can somehow leverage more, not necessarily, but it's like, hey, they won't cause us to be disabled and then having to depend on disability. So they vote for Trump. I knew Arab women voting for religious parties, religious Jewish parties in Israel. It was like, why the fuck? Well, they need the welfare. Because like, hey, if I want to leave my husband, I would have da 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 da. But then there's another thing, because they would want a traditional wedding, okay, and you would have to put on a burqa or whatever is the Jewish equivalent of that, and that's also a thing. The burqas is the women that are sex trafficked. I know this from Bedouin men. This is what you go to buy in the market. Okay, you go to buy in the market where the good stuff, where the olive oil at, with the Bedouin, right? So you go to buy with the Bedouin. And then they tell you, well, you know all these women wearing burqas. He says, yes, that's the worst. He says that's the prostitutes from his point of view, but it's basically that's the women that are trafficked, so they wear a burqa. It is what it is. And we didn't know about it. We would see women with burqas, like real burqa, like almost Taliban burqa. And I was like, what happened to Bedouin society? It wasn't like that. Okay, neither was Bnei Brak. Bnei Brak in Israel, is the most Jewish Orthodox city. That was when soldiers go out and build their houses, that was where they lived. Okay, it's kind of like there was a little bit tradition, but that's it. Okay, it was not it. And then, my mama and my father were living there, and that became Orthodox. They had to be kicked out. So it's like they had to have a particular stream of Orthodox. Okay, and eventually the person that was doing the most harm, they found the person to sell the house to. Okay, it was that terrible. That's real estate. So you can say, I can sit and, I can choose my battles. But you can only say I can choose my battles when you have a house, when you have leverage, when you have a good income, where you can travel, where you're healthy. Okay, and you're like, okay, I choose my battles. You can read a book, okay? Then, and being able to read a book is actually a great marker of that, because if you can't sit yourself down to read a book, it means you're worried, it means you're stressed, it means there's a lot of toxins in your area, it means you can't put yourself to focus. Okay, I mean, as an adult, okay, children, they play outside and stuff, but as an adult, if you can't sit yourself to read a good book, not a self-help book, it's just a good book. If you can't sit yourself down to read a book, that means something's really off with your society. Okay. Well, I have to evacuate the place for today. Speaking about going out and having a time outside the home. So I would leave you with that, and have a lovely moon day. And yeah, let's tend to the things we need to tend to live a good life.